welcome, guys. This is Corstian on your left, me on your right. Almost made the mistake here of calling myself Corstian. That was clutch. That was a clutch catch right there by my end
hmm
to not spill the beans there. Welcome back to our episode. This is our 122nd episode. Um, Finally, full
hmm
NFL season in the books. I'm saying that because the Bears finally end the season off right after miserable 11 straight games of losing, and they finally snap
hmm
it to the Packers. And what you couldn't have scripted any better. Put ourselves in the game-winning kick situation again, and this time it doesn't get blocked. Kyle does it justice. I honestly, I think we would have hit our 8 wins if the Bears didn't fold the way they folded. So I,
hmm
I think the record looks a lot worse than it actually is. But at the same time, there's some things that need to be cleaned up, and I'm really excited to see where the Bears go with their head coaching decision. Corsian, your Broncos held in. They held through. They dominated
hmm
the backup squad Chiefs and pushed the Dolphins and the Bengals
hmm
off of any hope of contention. How are you feeling about their playoff chances starting off with the Bills on Saturday?
Um, yeah, honestly, I'm just happy that the Broncos made the playoffs. That was like I came into the season with just kind of like moderate expectations. I was like, this is a rebuilding year. I'm just excited to see how Bo plays. Um, then to see them get double-digit wins and make it to the playoffs is more than I could really ask for this season. Um, yeah, I know some people are having the Broncos being like the team to upset the Bills. Um, it'll be a tough game, obviously. I mean, even if it turns into an upset, like it's going to be a grind of an upset, in my opinion. But Broncos have good pieces on offense and defense, but obviously Bills have one of the top MVP candidates on their team, so it's like it'll be good. But if the Bills end up blowing out the Broncos came in as the seventh seed. I think since the seventh seed was introduced, there's only been like one time the seventh seed has actually won a game. Um, so I mean, we'll see what happens, but I'm just happy the Broncos are back.
Especially after that cap situation, like post Russell Wilson. Like, if you're a
hmm
Broncos fan, this is like the best case scenario you can fall into. Marvin Mims looks amazing out there. The last few games, he's been on a tear. Cortland Sutton,
hmm
like, back to wide receiver one status. Like, I think the key thing for them, just to get a dominant running back, there's going to be a lot of good things you could have there. They have a lot of good
hmm
pieces here and there that could fit in, but like for the way
hmm
that roster is constructed, for them to be at the seventh seed right now, they're in a good position. They have a bright future. So a lot to be happy about if you're a Broncos fan. Speaking of bright futures, I was just watching the end of that Carolina and Atlanta game. Wow.
hmm
Talk about a story with Bryce Young. Again, it's a
hmm
theme we had early in the season on like don't give up on quarterbacks early in their development.
hmm
If there was any case study to look at for that, it would be Bryce Young. Like Bryce under the
hmm
same regime and getting benched and coming back from getting benched and playing the way he did, phenomenal. Like he's absolutely a buy low in dynasty. He's a target of mine as well as Penix for next year. Well, Penix looks like the real deal. I'm so happy I invested a
hmm
second round pick in him. He looks like he could be something really special. That game was fun to watch.
hmm Yeah, sucks that the Falcons have $50 million they can't spend on building the team up a little bit more up next season. But yeah, Penix does look good.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, that's part of the decision you got to rightfully critique about them when they made the decision to sign Kirk Cousins, not and then pivot to
hmm
draft Penix. So, um, yeah, 100% agree on that. That's a decision they got to live with, and maybe we might see a Kyle Pitts resurgence. I know we keep seeing that every year, next year, but I really think Penix is the guy to maximize him. So, I'll be
hmm
monitoring that closely. Okay, down to the deep topics. We're jumping right in. This is a question I've asked a couple people today, and I saw this question posted in the media, and I thought it's it's one of those rare questions where it's like, okay, this is going to be an interesting like question to talk about on the podcast. Who needs the Super Bowl more, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or Patrick Mahomes this season?
Yeah. Um, think that's a good question to ask. Um, so obviously, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're obviously saying Patrick Mahomes, and you want Patrick Mahomes to win. But pretty much the rest of the league is like anybody but. Um, and so it's like you think that like, well, Patrick Mahomes already has a Super Bowl, so you're like, oh, maybe it won't mean the most to him. But then like the idea of a three-peat is like super crazy to think about, and so like that like just boosts the legacy I think that much more for Mahomes. But I feel like um of the three, I think it would mean the most for Josh Allen. Just because over the past couple seasons, it feels like it was the Chiefs that had kept him out of the Super Bowl the past little bit. And so to see him kind of just overcome that and win would kind of like, I don't know, feel like the perfect story. And like, I feel like we've seen the Bills just get so close every single season just for them to fall just short before the Super Bowl. Whereas like the Ravens, obviously, I think it's a similar situation for Lamar where he's like 2-4 in the playoffs, and so like him going to the Super Bowl, I think would have a similar impact that it does for Josh Allen. But I think Josh Allen has gotten closer to it, and so it'd be a bit more impactful um, for Josh Allen doing it. But I think the ultimate beef that'll come from this is like so if between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, whoever makes it further, um, everybody will be saying that's the player who deserves the MVP. I mean, obviously it's not a playoff award, but like that's going to be the whole contention. I think that happens over the course of the playoffs and in the offseason where it's like, oh, if Josh Allen wins MVP, but Lamar, let's say he wins the Super Bowl, everybody will be dogging, Josh Allen saying like, oh, he didn't deserve this MVP because he doesn't win when it counts. And then vice versa, Lamar wins MVP, but Josh Allen makes it to the Super Bowl. Oh, Lamar shouldn't have won it because Josh Allen made it to the Super Bowl and got the team to where it matters. And so I think that'll be kind of a funny discourse to see over the course of the offseason if Josh Allen or Lamar are the two guys that make it.
I agree, and I'll look at it from the slightly opposite lens. Like whoever loses, like this out of the three, the earliest, people are going to be disappointed about, call them overrated and whatnot for whatever means. But Lamar Jackson has better stats than his MVP season last year. He's probably my pick for MVP this year, just because of his touchdown to
Yeah.
interception ratio combined with the effect he's had on the entire offense with the addition of Derrick Henry. Like from a quarterback perspective, for me, this is the one year I would give it to Saquon because he's just had an unbelievable season. It's completely transformed that Eagles offense we knew of last year that ran into a stagnant halt in that losing streak. I'm still kicking myself over picking Tyreek over him in drafts when I was picking fourth overall because I was like, I could pick Saquon, but Derrick Henry's there in the second round. Now, obviously, I didn't lose out much with that decision, but I was thinking about what could have been with Saquon and Derrick Henry on my team. Nonetheless,
Yeah.
the reason I have Patrick
Yeah.
Mahomes in this question and not Jared Goff, because he could be another person that you could put on the Super Bowl, having lost his only opportunity against the Patriots when he was on the Rams. The reason I put Patrick Mahomes here is because I think you could start the conversation on who's the greatest quarterback of all time. If Patrick Mahomes wins his third straight Super Bowl, something that nobody,
Yeah.
not even Brady, has done. That would be quite the story to start off with. So like Mahomes has the most to gain by winning a Super Bowl, in my opinion, because regardless of Allen and Lamar, they can't say they won 3 Super Bowls in a row, and especially in this conference, that is pretty impressive. As far as my actual answer to this question, I'm gonna say Lamar Jackson. And the reason I'm going to say Lamar Jackson is because now you have a Derrick Henry, a guy to take the pressure off of you. You have the weapons around you. Hoping Zay Flowers is healthy enough to be there for them in the playoffs. But you have an offense built around you. Your defense is getting much, much better after historically being good last season and slowly falling off because of injuries and like schematic changes and whatnot. It's coming back. And you lost to the Chiefs by a toenail after losing to them in the AFC Championship game. And in the past, he's been criticized for having all these MVP seasons. I think you need to have a Super Bowl to show for it. And I know on the other side, you could say, okay, Josh Allen doesn't have these MVPs. he probably needs the Super Bowl more to be put on par with these guys. But you look at Josh
Mm-hmm.
Allen and the start of the season, nobody was saying he has the talent on the level that Mahomes and Lamar has. He's been kind of doing it by himself. Like I'm it's not to disrespect James Cook, Amari Cooper, and Dalton Kincaid. They're all capable weapons, and Shakir. But
Mm-hmm.
they're nowhere near like the combination that Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews, and Zay Flowers that brought Lamar Jackson this season, and combined with
Mm-hmm.
Todd Monken. So for me, it's Lamar because of what he has around him already. I would say he would need
Mm-hmm.
the Super Bowl more. But it's definitely a tough decision between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think, you know, Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson winning a Super Bowl here as well, I think like introduces them to the conversation of like their all-time rankings as quarterbacks. Because I feel like once you start getting, because like what, they're late 20s now, right? Like at their age, and so like they have compounded career-wise stats. They have been pretty much the premier guys over the past pretty much the entirety of their careers. And so like I feel like once, if Josh Allen wins a Super Bowl here, then all of a sudden it's like, do we start mentioning him in like a top 10 quarterback all-time discussion? Or if like, I think Lamar especially, I guess you can start, because I feel like Lamar, you could argue that now, especially if he wins a third MVP right here.
I
Um,
agree,
where you're like,
especially with the passing season they
where's
had this year.
yeah, and so you're like Lamar already, I think, is basically in that discussion of like where does he rank all time amongst quarterbacks? I think the Super Bowl cements both of these guys at least around that 10 to 15 range of like, do we want to discuss this here? I think maybe, I don't know, but and so like I think Lamar's closer to that, and so maybe that's why Josh Allen needs it more, just because it puts him closer to that top 10 discussion. But I think regardless, this is like a must for them to be discussed as like one of the all-time greats. Whereas I feel like Mahomes honestly could retire right now after the end of the season, and you could still say he's probably a top 10 quarterback all time. Um, retiring at 27, 28 years old that he is right now because of his
I
Super Bowl
probably go
and
higher
MVP
than that
accolades.
just because of like you think about the amount of Super Bowls he's gone to up to
Mm-hmm.
up to this point. It's really impressive, and he's like a year. I think it's a year younger than Josh Allen and Lamar because they're both 28 right
Mm-hmm.
now, and Mahomes I think is 26 or 27. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's like he has the most to gain by far by winning the Super Bowl, but he could honestly
Mm-hmm.
not win the Super Bowl this year, and people won't lose like a bat an eye because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the team is really
Mm-hmm.
really good, but the seasons that Josh Allen and Lamar are having are just like otherworldly. So um yeah, great discussion here. Um moving on to the next topic, we jump conferences. That
Mm-hmm.
Lions Vikings game was special, and just definitely a statement win by Detroit. Going into these playoffs, which NFC team do you think is the biggest threat to the Lions?
Yeah, biggest threat to the Lions. I'd say how are you just doing like one team? There's like two teams that I'd argue would be like the
Go
scariest to
ahead.
go
You can
against.
list
Um,
out two teams, but tell me who the bigger one is in your opinion.
I mean, I feel like it's a given being the Eagles. Um, they are a scary team to go against. Um, if Jalen Hurts is playing, I know he's still on concussion protocol, so there's a chance they get knocked out if he's still on protocol this upcoming week. But the other team is the Buccaneers, and I think that like obviously they struggled against the Saints in the first half, but I think they just have that like mentality of they never feel like they're out of a game, and like they're going to grind it out till the very end. And so it's like opposing teams just simply cannot afford to let off the gas when you're facing the Buccaneers, because they will claw their way back into any game they're down in, which I think there's other teams that have that capability, but I think we've seen it time and time again with the Buccaneers, and just like I think the mental toughness I've seen from just the team as a whole, I think makes them my other team that could beat the Lions.
Yeah, I totally see that with the Buccaneers. Their record, I think, is a lot worse than what they actually are, and they had a 10-win season. This is a team that beat the Lions
Hmm.
in week one. Like they're one of two teams to beat them,
Right? Like,
and like but looking personnel wise, they had the guys in order to stop the run. Like, and that Detroit's so
hmm
dominant at. They have the guys to get after the passer and force Detroit into a
hmm
game that they don't want to be in. And offensive pieces have stepped up for the Bucks. We look at K. Dotton early in the season, Jalen McMillan as of late, Bucky Irving this entire season. People have been raving about his ability to run the football, and they have like a three-headed attack there. And Baker Mayfield just coming into his own, like especially in the beginning of the season. We didn't talk about him much
hmm
towards the end, but he gives you the feeling that you see watching Stafford play. Like he gives you that
hmm
kind of effect where like you feel like he's never out of it. And Mike
hmm
Evans, like what a way towards the end of the game to get him that 1,000 yards, and the way that crowd reacts is amazing. But that's a sleeper pick for
hmm
me as far as like NFC team as the biggest threat to the Lions. I'm gonna say Minnesota. And I know I
hmm
sound crazy saying that after watching Sunday's game and how the Lions just pulled away like crazy. But
hmm
you just got Blake Cashman back, who they were previously undefeated
hmm
with him in the lineup. Then you think about Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson being held in check all game. I don't think that's going to
hmm
happen in a playoff scenario. This is kind of like I feel
hmm
like a lot of pressure was put on Sam Darnold to win this game
hmm
to get the 1 seed, and they kind of played uptight. Whereas, like, if they rematch again in the
hmm
playoffs, like both teams have like equal stakes, where it's like
hmm
win or go home, like actually win or go
Yeah.
home. And I think
hmm
Minnesota being on the wrong end of that game is going to give them slightly more motivation going into this
hmm
matchup, despite being on the road. And because this team also plays indoors, they're built to handle this.
hmm
And with guys like Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson, I just think their aerial attack is going to be much, much better. And Sam Darnold saw the blueprint on what teams will do against him with additional pressure.
hmm
And the guy like Kevin O'Connell is going to scheme him much easier looks and much more. He's going to give him more outlets like drag routes, like options, screens that are going to like. I don't think people have figured out Sam Darnold yet. So I'm still not out on the Vikings. A third team, although to a lesser degree, I will say the Eagles, just because we don't know what's going on with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
But with Saquon Barkley, the Eagles could beat anybody, and they could
Yeah.
play the game that the
Honestly.
Lions want to play. They can reduce the amount of possessions such that it's like this game is going to be like a 20 to 30 game, like as far as like how much each team scores.
hmm
Like the Eagles can do that to anybody because of the way they play, and they
hmm
have the defense to limit the Lions at least a little bit.
hmm
So I'm gonna say the Vikings to answer this question, but Eagles are secondary to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Vikings would have been my number 3 pick, so it's not too far off. But because I think, I mean, if you look at the game, this most recent game against Lions Vikings, most of the game was a pretty close competition between the two. Because, I mean, if you look at the box score, you're like, oh wow, the Vikings got smoked, but like that was
Well,
kind of
look at the
like.
red zone. Look at the red zone possessions. That was the big difference. And the Van Ginkel
hmm
drop pick six. Like
hmm
that's a key thing that doesn't get like counted here because it goes as an incompletion.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's like I think like Vikings versus Lions. I don't think the score will be quite as disproportionate next time if they go head to head. I think it can be closer, just because like I said, the game was a lot closer if you look at it. And then it's kind of the Lions just kind of ran away with it at the end, which I mean does matter to an extent. Like the Lions ended up being the team to close it out. But it's not going to be a blowout type of game. But yeah, that's kind of how I'll leave it there.
Yeah. And this is not us like picking against Detroit right now. If it was me, despite all the injuries, I would pick the Lions to go to the Super Bowl. And that kind of pains me to say
Mhm.
this as a Bears fan living in Michigan. Like, this is kind of like the worst kind of torture. We're the only team not to make the playoffs in our division. And because of that, we lose 11 straight games. And then the one team,
Mhm.
like, I have to be surrounded by. But in all
Mhm.
seriousness, I'm super happy for Lions fans. It's been a long while since they got this far.
Mhm.
Can't imagine the disappointment on their faces after last year. Like,
Mhm.
this is their year. They better win it
Mhm.
because otherwise, like, it's gonna be a nightmare scenario. So, um, yeah. With that
Mhm.
said, what are your like wild card predictions just going for the game? We can start with who you got between the Chargers and the Texans.
Um, Here I have the Chargers winning this game. I feel like despite the Texans' good record, they've kind of like you know they've lightning McQueen their way into the playoffs. It feels into the position that they're in, where you know how at the end of the or at the beginning of the Cars movie when Lightning McQueen's racing for the Piston Cup, he has to use his tongue to just make it across the finish line. I feel like the Texans are in a very similar position to that.
What a wild analogy! Out of all the ones you picked, you go Lightning McQueen. Okay, I see your point there. If you look at
Like
the other teams, like
you
the
see the
Colts,
vision though.
it was a heated debate this week, like whether they should have fired Chris Ballard, like on what to do about Anthony Richardson.
Mhm.
And they had the Titans firing their
Mhm.
GM a year after firing Mike Vrabel and siding with the GM, and the whole like
Mhm.
Levis saga. Don't say I told you so about him. And then you got the Jags with Shad Khan, like with Trent Baalke on the video call saying like, "Oh, if the head coach gives me good enough reason to fire the GM, I'll fire Trent Baalke." With him on the call answering this question, like that was that was AFC South is a mess right now, and to be able to win in that division
Mhm.
um, doesn't amount to much. The Texans have their own protection
Mhm.
problems, so against the Chargers line, I do pick the Chargers as well. So I like your selection
Mhm.
there. Who do you got against the heated AFC North matchup? Steelers and the Ravens.
Um, I feel like like Ravens kind of feels like a clear choice, but of the games, I feel like this would be a lesser surprising upset game for me here. Um, but like it's tricky because the Steelers also have lost four straight, and so you're like they've kind of sucked as of late.
Yeah,
But I feel like like if an upset were to happen, I feel like it might be the Steelers, but I'm gonna still say the Ravens just because of like how unbelievable Lamar's been playing all season.
and same. And until the Steelers stop Derrick Henry, I'm gonna say the Ravens as well. I think with the Steelers, it's like lately the formula has been against them. Like if you get George Pickens off his game,
Hmm.
you could significantly limit their offense. Like
Hmm.
their aerial attack doesn't scare me. Like when Pickens is not on his radar, maybe you might get one or two shots to Calvin Austin or Mike Williams because Russell Wilson's just that dude.
Hmm.
But like
Yeah.
outside of that, I think you could significantly limit their offense. Um,
Hmm.
their defense is completely dependent on if they're able to get turnovers in this game. If the Steelers'
Hmm.
defense gets turnovers in this game, it will be a lot closer than it appears, and it's truly a toss-up. But if they're not able to, Ravens are walking away with this.
Uh,
That's the biggest thing to learn out of their two matchups this season. Like the
hmm.
like turnover ratio in those two matchups. When the Steelers won that, they won their game. When they lost, they they lost the game. So
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, quick thing. Kind of going back to the Texans, but and you remember you mentioned Will Levis. Remember that was like our beginning of the season predictions for like who we thought the worst quarterbacks in the league would be, and you said
yeah,
Will Levis, and then I said Daniel Jones, and I think we're pretty good with those two predictions for the worst quarterbacks in the league this year.
I mean, yeah, considering that one is like not like employed by the same team. He's like fourth string on the Vikings right now, and then you got
Hmm.
one guy who's looking to get replaced by Shador Sanders or Cam Ward. Like nice job there. I don't know if that deserves a pat on the back because I think those are obvious ones, but yeah, we did something right.
Yeah,
I think
but
compared to my Bears prediction being optimistic that they'll hit 8 wins, I will pat
yeah,
myself on the back for this one.
but like I don't think we could have predicted how bad both of their seasons could have been going into like the weekly Will Levis memes. I think was like absolute gold for you, and then Daniel Jones being the practice team like safety or something. I think was
That was
also
wild.
like so crazy, and so the fact that we like just absolutely nailed those two picks kind of makes me laugh. Just because I'm like, there really wasn't. I mean, maybe you could argue the quarterback carousel of the Raiders, but like,
Aiden O'Connell's playing pretty well. He's playing pretty
mhm,
well lately. Like, and plus, like, if they were good enough to get Brock Bowers like one of the best like seasons
mhm,
by a tight end ever. Like,
yeah,
so I would
mhm,
argue that wasn't as bad as Will. I will never
yeah,
forget.
yeah. It
I
wasn't
was in
as
Nashville
bad.
before week 1. I was in Nashville before that happened, and a lot of
Mhm,
people on the radio station, being the homers that they were, saying the Titans are beating the Bears by 17 points week 1.
mhm,
And to have that be topped off with the game-defining Will Levis pick six to start the season, couldn't have
yeah,
wrote a better script for that. Like being a Bears fan
mhm,
and the one that predicted that. So, I mean, may your days be glorious, Will Levis, because unfortunately, I don't think you're going
mhm,
under any Mayo commercials anymore. But
yeah. But yeah,
yeah,
I just wanted to bring
that's
that back up. I was like, I don't think there were two worse quarterbacks than like the ones that we picked. I mean, it was not too hard, but it was still funny to think about. But anyways, yeah, keep going with our
okay.
predictions.
I would ask you about Denver, Buffalo, but I already know who you're going to pick. So I'll just say the Bills are absolutely smashing the Broncos. It's been a good season, but sorry, the luck has run out. Maybe next year when you get Marvin Mims,
Mhm.
Travis Hunter, and Cortland Sutton all on the same page. Um,
Yeah.
Imagine that. Like if the Broncos had Travis Hunter stay in state. Like, are you going to play him next to Patrick Surtain, or are you going to put him in the 3 wide set, or are you going to do both? Like, I would be very curious, but probably not likely
Mhm.
to happen. But that would
Mhm.
my curiosity's piqued with that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Detroit's on a bye in the NFC. Do you think the Packers upset the Eagles here? Like, let's say
Um.
Jalen Hurts is healthy.
Uh-huh.
Another Week
Jalen
1
Hurts is
rematch.
healthy. I think Eagles take this away.
Okay.
Because like I feel like for the Packers to win, um, Josh Jacobs needs a career day. That's what my take is on this.
Yeah.
But then you look at the Eagles front seven, um, and I'm like, sure. I mean, like he still could have a good game, but like Eagles defense is just really good right now. The fact that the two guys that retired last offseason, and they're two Hall of Fame guys, their replacements both make the Pro Bowl this year, like insane. Um, and so like I like he's like I mean like Christian Watson's really not that big of a factor, but like he's on IR. Jordan Love, he had the I mean he'll be playing, but like he had the knee tweak or whatever last week, and so you're like
No, his elbow. His elbow.
his elbow. Never mind, his the elbow tweak, and so I mean he should be good to play, but we'll just see how his health keeps up. It's something I guess it's somewhat important to monitor. Um, but I think overall, the Eagles, top to bottom, are I think the team that we envisioned the 49ers to be this season in terms of how strong they are in just all aspects of the football field. Um, and so I'm gonna just have the Eagles here as the winner.
Me too. Me too. I think although the Packers they could easily upset another NFC East like
Mm-hmm.
suppose like powerhouse 2 years in a row. I just don't see the path with Jordan Love's elbow failing him. Like
Mm-hmm.
like because usually you have the Jaden Reed factor if he's fine on top of Josh
Mm-hmm.
Jacobs. And their offensive line has been usually good, but of late they've been very
Uh-huh.
vulnerable. And you have the
Mm-hmm.
defense that's okay, but I think they're gonna struggle against the team when you're thinking about Saquon Barkley. I think
Mm-hmm.
this is not the Bears. Like their run game is gonna be significantly different, more well developed.
Mm-hmm.
one of the best offensive lines in the league. Oh, by the way, and you have AJ Brown like to deal with. Like
Mm-hmm.
the Packers have a really, really good defense this year. But
Yeah.
I just think what the Eagles present are just too much to have. Oh, by the way, you got Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert to worry about. So
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll start to
Yeah.
see those secondary pieces emerge itself more against a good defense like this. But I
Uh-huh.
just think there's too many weapons that Dallas that Green Bay has to handle. So give me the Eagles in this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Plus I
Yeah.
hate the Packers.
That's valid.
Okay. All right. Probably one of the most interesting wildcard matches for me, just looking at this,
Mm-hmm.
is the Commanders and the Buccaneers. Like, I truly think this is a toss up. I think this can
Uh-huh.
go any which way. Who do you think is going to go?
I think it'll be close. I think there's a good shot that this turns into a shootout. I think we've seen both these guys, both the quarterbacks, just be able to just absolutely sling the football. Um, I think I'll give the slight edge to the Buccaneers just due to overall postseason experience. Um, and they won a playoff game even last season, I think, with an upset. I think. I mean, they were like fourth seed, but like no one expected them to win, but then they did. So I'll give them that. And then just like they just have the playoff experience, so they don't have any of those playoff jitters, I think, and so that'll give them the slight edge over it. But again, both the Buccaneers safeties are not playing. They've been out for they'll be out the rest of the season too. And so like I wouldn't be surprised to see just an absolute shootout where Jaden Daniels is just throwing a bunch of deep balls to guys and they're getting caught, and so it's a high scoring affair, but Bucks.
Yeah. Last year they faced a struggling Eagles team at that point. That point in the season. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think this is where we're gonna see Jaden Daniels struggle in this part of the
Mm-hmm.
season. And I know, like, it seems like I'm waiting on his downfall, but I think once you get into the playoffs, you teams specifically game plan against you and have the personnel to do it. I think he's been feasting on teams that don't really have the personnel to deal with him. The
Mm-hmm.
Buccaneers are a different story. I think they do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Todd Bowles is a great defensive mind. He'll figure out something. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and on top of like, despite getting Marshawn Lattimore, I
Mm-hmm.
think the Bucks offense is still difficult to contend with, even without Chris
Mm-hmm.
Godwin. So give me the Bucks here as well. I think
Mm-hmm.
it'll be a close game. Definitely be
Mm-hmm.
one of be the most entertaining matchups. We'll see. But
Mm-hmm.
I like Tampa Bay here. And for our last game with I think this is also another toss up between the Vikings and the Rams. I don't think enough people are talking about how good the Rams are being right now
Mm-hmm.
because all the focus has been on the NFC North. Um,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be a really, really good game. I'm really excited to see what Brian Flores does against Matthew Stafford and Cooper Cup and
Mm-hmm.
Puka Nakua. By the way, what the heck happened to Cooper Cup these last like 3 to 4 games? Like, why is like
Dude.
he's making me look really, really bad right now, like saying he's gonna have a really good season, but he's just like completely vanished off the face of the earth. He's become basically Taylor Decker, like lined up out wide, like almost
Mm-hmm.
like it's like a creative play that he's lined up there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that's beside the point. Who do you have, Vikings versus Rams?
Here I'll probably have the.
Uh-oh, I think we lost him.
I don't know.
No.
Okay? Am I back? Am
Yay!
I back?
We got you back. Yeah,
Okay.
we got you.
Yeah, I saw my thing spin. I was like, uh oh. But yeah, no, I said I'll have the Vikings here. I don't know if that was caught or not, but I
No,
just
I
feel like
got
the
you.
Rams, like they have this incredible win streak, which I mean says a lot about how good of a team they are. But I feel like they've had just a lot of games throughout the season where I felt like they struggled to put points where they barely won in a low scoring game, which is kind of what like scares me for like in order to put the Rams, over the Vikings, where I've seen like the Vikings win those close games, but they've also like won those hot, like they've been able to put up a lot of high scoring games. And so I just think there's a higher scoring potential for the Vikings here that has me have them winning over the Rams. So I mean, like Puka's great. I think he could have a great game. Kyron Williams, he's been playing really well all season, but like you said, Cooper Cup, you just kind of like Then I think it's a combination of age and just like injuries this season, because I know he's been in and out quite a lot in terms of his overall play and health. But I think, like, so the way I talk about it makes it feel like I'm saying it's going to be a blowout in the favor of the Vikings, but I think Vikings win in a close contested game.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna go with the Vikings here. I just again talk about their offensive pieces. They just have too much to handle right now when you think about Jordan Addison,
Mm-hmm.
um, Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, Jalen Naylor's also been playing pretty well, and then Sam Darnold. I think you're going to see a bounce back game from them. It looks like a lot of people are out of the Vikings now just because they lost one game. Sam Darnold had a bad game, and their defense has been like too unpredictable. I think they can give some problems to the Rams. So give me the Vikings here. I think the Rams will put up some good games. I think they're missing one key piece on that offense. Like
Mm-hmm.
from like the tight end perspective, like if they get a dynamic tight end to kind of offset like everything that Stafford does well from like the outside receivers and get Cooper Kupp back, they might make this a game.
Mm-hmm.
And that defense, sometimes they're like just extraordinarily good. Sometimes they're leaky in coverage. That's what the story of the season has told me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust them against Justin Jefferson. So
Mm-hmm.
give me the
Yeah.
Vikings here.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the Rams schedule too. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to count the Seahawks Rams game just because of backup situations, but you look at the 3 prior games, which was the 49ers, Jets, and the Cardinals, and they scored 12, 19, and 13 points in those 3 games. And I think that's what's kind of making me doubt it. And it's like they barely squeaked by in those wins, but then you look at the game before and they beat the Bills 44-42. And so I'm like they can keep up with a high octane team, but like
But the
they've
Bills
had.
were also having trouble stopping people as of late. Like we're kind. I think that's a kind of. I would look at the Eagles game as a barometer. I think that
Yeah,
kind
but
of
that's
shows like where they are
yeah.
on the hierarchy.
But then it's weird because that's over. I mean, the Bills game was a month ago, and the Eagles game is over a month ago, so it's hard to gauge those. But I guess what you're talking about. But yeah, overall, I think we're both on the same page. Vikings beat
We're,
the
we're,
Rams.
we're saying this knowing that this same Rams team beat the Vikings by 10. So I feel really, really bad picking the Vikings here. But like
Yeah.
I think I think the overall message here is we don't know which Rams team we're gonna get. And
Yeah.
are we gonna get the high scoring or low score? With the Vikings, we know like no matter what we get, they're gonna be really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
I think the Vikings are the safer pick here, which is why I'm picking them. But I would not be surprised if the Rams win this
Yeah.
one because they are
Yeah.
on the streak.
Valid. Yeah.
Alrighty, okay, that will do it for us. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see how much our predictions come true. Hopefully, they're as right as we were about Will Levis and Daniel Jones, but we will see. Corstian, I hope the Broncos really pull one out of their hat, but
Yeah.
it doesn't happen. It was a good season. Remember, they were
Yeah.
in salary cap hell. So
Yeah.
compared to that, like I think this is a win for you. So
Mm-hmm.
good luck. Hopefully it's a good game this weekend. Guys, enjoy the games. We'll catch you next week with a recap and divisional playoff focus.
Mm-hmm. Is that it? Okay.
No, I gotta shout out the
Yeah,
Amanda
you were
Mission
closing it out, and I was like, wait a
channel.
minute.
You know, I totally know what I'm doing here, closing out the episode before plugging this. Okay, but this is our Instagram handle. Follow it down below. A YouTube channel on Modern Mission. That's where you get our full length podcast episodes. New Year's resolution that will probably likely not come true. Upload to the Instagram for once. But until then, see you guys later. Corstian, hit your outro.
Peace.